What is going on, guys? Jeff here for Mad Hatter's Reef, and today we got a brand new video for you. We're going to be taking a look at the top 10 saltwater fish that I would put into a 220-gallon aquarium. Now, before we jump into that, if this is your first time being here, this is where I talk about everything reef tank related. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell so you can be notified every time that I upload a new video, because I upload a new video every single week. Now, this week's video topic was suggested to us by Novem, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at the top 10 saltwater fish that I would put into a 220-gallon aquarium. So without further ado, let's jump into number 10. Coming in at number 10 is the Cardinal Fish. Now, yeah, you can put these fish in a number of different size aquariums, and actually the recommended tank size for these guys is 30 gallons. That's probably for one fish. But in a larger aquarium, you're actually going to be able to keep a large group of cardinal fish. And in a 220-gallon, I would like to have 6 to 8 of these guys in a school. I think that would be incredibly awesome looking. And actually, I have some footage of a school of cardinal fish in a very large aquarium, which it was incredibly stunning to see them as a group in a tank, because a lot of saltwater fish are constantly moving. They move around a lot. But cardinal fish tend to kind of just sit in one spot and kind of just do their thing. So a group of 6 or 8 of these guys in a 220-gallon aquarium would be incredibly stunning and offer a lot of contrast to the other saltwater fish that are just kind of swimming around and doing their thing. Now, as far as cardinal fish go, these guys are considered easy to care for, semi-aggressive. If you have a large group of them, there's a good chance that they may become aggressive amongst themselves. So I would probably go along the lines of buying a captive bred variety of this fish. They are carnivores, so they're going to eat the meats. It's pretty much the only thing that they'll even come close. There's a lot of fish out there where they'll say they're carnivores, and they'll kind of every once in a while eat some type of herbivore-based food. These guys, they're not going to touch anything if it has anything other than meat in it. They are considered reef safe, grow upwards of 3 inches, and require a minimum tank size of 30 gallons. But like I said, in a larger aquarium, I would keep a school of these. I think it would be incredibly awesome looking. As far as price point goes, these guys are typically found anywhere from $20 to $30, depending on their size and availability. A aquacultured variety of these guys is definitely the way to go. Anytime that you have the chance to buy aquacultured saltwater fish, I strongly recommend that you do, because they're going to be more adapted to aquarium life and also do a lot better in an aquarium setting. So it's just going to compound your success with aquacultured saltwater fish. Coming in at number 9 is the yellow long-nosed butterfly fish. Now, these are a iconic saltwater fish, and they're one of the very few butterfly fish that are actually reef safe with caution. Now, there is a potential that you buy one of these guys and they like chewing on corals, so that's something that you need to take into consideration. Make sure that you test the fish prior to adding them to an established reef tank, because that'd be pretty devastating to see one of these guys, even though that they're beautiful, just tear through your reef tank. They are considered moderate care level, peaceful in their temperament, carnivores in their diet. They are reef safe with caution, like we already talked about. Can grow upwards of 9 inches, and their minimum tank size is 125 gallons. Now, as far as price point goes with these guys, they're typically anywhere from $80 to $100, depending on how big they are and their availability. Definitely a beautiful saltwater fish. Check them out, the long-nosed butterfly fish. Coming in at number 8 on our top 10 saltwater fish for a 220-gallon aquarium, we got the yellow tang. Now, as far as price point goes, this is probably one of the fish, or one of the few fish on this list, that has dramatically increased over the last year or so as far as price goes. Typical price point now is anywhere from $110 to $140 for a wild-caught yellow tang. And that's really going to be determined by its size. There's also the captive bred yellow tang, which for the longest time was pretty substantial in its cost, but it seems like the wild caught has now caught up with captive bred yellow tangs. A captive bred yellow tang right now is going for $120, and in a lot of cases, your captive bred fish is going to be much smaller than your wild caught due to regulations with wild caught fish. That's why you never see a small wild-caught yellow tang. You're always, anytime that you see a small yellow tang, it's most likely going to be a captive bred, but it never hurts to ask. So if you're ever at the local fish store and you're wondering if that's captive bred, just ask. They should be able to tell you. As far as stats on these guys, they are easy to care for. Just like most tangs are, these guys are semi-aggressive in their behavior. They are herbivores, so they're going to do a lot of work for you, keeping the rock work clean as well as the glass. They are considered reef safe, grow upwards of 8 inches, and require a minimum tank size of 100 gallons. Coming in at number 7 on our top 10 saltwater fish for a 220-gallon aquarium is our first expert-only fish. This is the Regal Angelfish. Now, most of your angelfish are not necessarily considered reef safe. Most of them are just flat out not reef safe, but there are a few that are reef safe with caution. Now, this guy, as far as price point goes, there's a large variation of cost associated with this fish. The typical, they're going to be anywhere from $170 starting out all the way up to $400. That's really going to depend on the location of which this fish comes. Now, as you can see in the photo, there tends to be a lot of variation in coloration depending on region, and that also is going to dictate the price with this fish. Care level, expert only. That's something that needs to be considered. They are considered semi-aggressive, omnivore in their diet, reef safe with caution, so you want to make sure that you are testing this fish, the one that you happen to select, prior to adding it to an established aquarium, especially a reef tank, so that you don't end up with a fish that's just going to go through and pick out your invertebrates and your corals. They grow upwards of 10 inches and require a minimum tank size of 125 gallons. Coming in at number 6 on our top 10 saltwater fish for a 220-gallon aquarium is the magnificent Mr. Foxface. These guys, as far as price point goes, typical asking price is about $100, and that's pretty common. Doesn't really matter on what the size is associated with the fish. $100 just seems to be where it's at. As far as care level, they are considered moderate care level fish, peaceful in their temperament. So if you're looking for a herbivore that is going to be of the peaceful mindset, a rabbit-faced foxfish is definitely a good addition to a reef tank. A lot of your tangs typically are semi-aggressive, so that's something that you need to make sure that you have a good understanding before you purchase any fish. They are herbivores. They are reef safe with caution, so they're pickers. They're going to pick maybe a little too far sometimes and maybe nip at some corals. They grow upwards of 9 inches and require a minimum tank size of 125 gallons. Coming in at number 5 on our top 10 saltwater fish is the Blue Tang. Now, as far as price point goes with these guys, $100 seems to be about the going rate. If they get a little bit larger, it's going to cost a little bit more. Top end's about $200. They also are actively being captive bred, so that is usually when they first start breeding a saltwater fish, a little bit on the higher end, but over time comes down a little bit. And typical captive bred blue hippo tang is going to be about $120. And then again, we already talked about regulations, so smaller, typically captive bred. They are considered moderate care level, semi-aggressive in their behavior, herbivores in their diet, reef safe, and grow upwards of a foot. So required or minimum tank size is 180 gallons or bigger. Coming in at number 4 on our top 10 saltwater fish for a 220-gallon is the Blueface Angelfish, our second angelfish to be able to make the list, due mostly to the fact that this is a reef safe with caution type fish. So you want to make sure that you have one of the good ones prior to adding it to an established reef tank. They, as far as price point goes, typically $150, $160, depending on where you're picking them up. They are a moderate care level fish, semi-aggressive, omnivore, reef safe with caution. They're rather large. They can grow upwards to 1.5 feet and require a minimum tank size of 220 gallons. We get at number 3 on our top 10 saltwater fish for a 220-gallon aquarium. We got another tang, and this is the blonde Naso tang. Now, as far as price point goes with these guys, anywhere is from $150 all the way up to $200. This is not a species of tang that is actually actively captive bred at this time. So the only thing that we have is wild caught. So that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. They are moderate care level, semi-aggressive in their behavior, herbivores, reef safe. They grow upwards 1.5 feet and require a minimum tank size of 180 gallons. Coming in at number 2 on our top 10 saltwater fish is the Leyetale Anthia. Now, as far as tank size requirement, this isn't so much a fish that needs a larger aquarium, even though from an Anthia standpoint, it does need a little bit larger. 125 gallons is as typical minimum tank size, but with a 220 gallon, much like what we talked about with a Cardinal fish, this is a fish that I would like to keep as a group. So having one male and a number of females, so that one male just didn't focus all his attention on one female. I would love to have a school of Leyetale Anthias if I were to keep a 220 gallon aquarium. These guys are moderate care level, semi-aggressive in the temperament. Carnivores, they need to be fed quite often. Planktivores, more specifically, they are considered reef safe, grow upwards of 5 inches, and require a minimum tank size of 125 gallons. And coming in at the number 1 spot on our top 10, we got the Achilles Tang. That's right, another Tang. I love me some Tangs, and if I was going to keep a 220 gallon aquarium, this definitely would be on the list. As far as care level with these guys, they are considered expert care level. They will put a hurting on your wallet. Anywhere from $300 to $500 is the asking price for these guys. The semi-aggressive herbivores, considered reef safe, grow upwards of 8.5 inches and require a minimum tank size of 180 gallons. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up. And if you want to learn more about saltwater fish, check this video out. I will see you over there.